And was anything stolen?
I believe around $1,400 by the cash registers were empty. The safe was empty. They walked back to the office, and that's when they found her laying on the ground.
We know that he sexually assaulted her, put the gun to her head, and threatened to kill her.
I had no forensic evidence. I had no video evidence.
Were you afraid he was going to skip town?
They called me up and said, hey, he's on the way to Laredo. There goes my murder suspect.
My only words to the parents were, I will catch him.
There was 15, 20 DVDs laying on the ground. Her car's in the parking lot, but the door's locked and the open sign is not on. It's the only store in San Antonio that did not have surveillance cameras in the store. It says, I need to get some money. We should rob a EB game store.
Their life revolved around Amber. She was their world. Everything they did was for her.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé brings us to the vibrant city of San Antonio. Known for its rich culture and history, it also became the setting for the heartbreaking murder of a young store manager. With very few clues, investigators chased down leads for months until an anonymous tip would send them on a very unexpected journey. It was mid-afternoon on a cool January day when detectives in San Antonio received a call about a possible homicide at an EB game store in the north side of the city. The victim was the store manager, 25-year-old Amber Belken.
Officers, they walked in, noticed the disarray behind the counter, went straight back to where the victim was located in the office. She was laying face down. She had a striped shirt on, socks, no shoes. We found her shoes on the counter, and she had a white EB Games bag on her head. It wasn't tied, it was twisted.
Investigators noted the phone line in the office had been cut, and the door to the safe was open. And was anything stolen?
I believe around $1,400 by the cash registers were empty. The safe was empty.
An inventory of the store revealed a total of $1,954 in cash had been stolen, as well as merchandise.
Every day she would arrive at 9 o'clock, go into the store, relock the door, turn the alarm off. She would get the money from the day before and go back to the office, fill out deposit slips. She would take her shoes off and put on some slippers, so that was all pretty much routine.
Shortly after 9 a.m., Amber had called a colleague at another Brent store to check in.
And they were talking a little bit. And she says, I got to go right now. I'll call you back in a minute. He figured somebody was at the door, a customer. She hangs up the phone. She never called him back. So a period of time went by. He kept calling for several hours, and she never would answer the phone. So he, in turn, called Mariano, knowing that he just works right across the street, and wanted him to go check on her.
Mariano was busy, so he sent another employee to the store.
That employee comes back and says, her car's in the parking lot, but the door's locked and the open sign is not on.
At around 2 p.m., Mariano went to check on Amber, but instead, he found another employee named Brandon behind the counter.
Mariano noticed that there was 15, 20 DVDs laying on the ground behind the counter. That's unusual. He asked Brandon, well, did you look for Amber? He says, no, I didn't. So they walked together back to the office, and that's when they found her laying on the ground. In turn, they called 911.
Investigators were stumped. Surely Brandon would have noticed the DVDs on the ground and gone to the back office to check on its store manager.
I talked to him at the scene, and I couldn't get over the fact that when he got there, he says, yeah, I got there, the store's not open, the sign's not lit up saying it's open. I think any other person that would walk into a situation like that would look around the store looking for it. But he didn't do it.
A canvas of the store and surrounding strip mall turned up few clues.
There were no security cameras that were working at that store.
It's the only store in San Antonio that did not have surveillance cameras in the store. The only store that we found that had surveillance video, was the Starbucks that's adjacent to EB Games, but that only showed the front door. It didn't show any surroundings.
Detective Raymond Roberts was preparing himself to deliver the heartbreaking news to Amber's family when her father arrived at the scene.
Somebody called him and said, "Hey, turn on the news. There's been a murder at your daughter's store." So he turned on the news, saw it, and made the scene.
He was in shock and disbelief. Had to tell him that his daughter's dead.
She calls me while I'm still at the crime scene. She says, "Something's up with this guy. Something's not right."
My only words to the parents were, "I will catch him."
The murder of 25-year-old Amber Belken had rattled the community and the investigators themselves. Her parents were crushed to learn their only child had been the victim of a senseless crime.
Their life revolved around Amber. She was their world. Everything they did was for her.
Amber was working hard to finish school.
Young girl tried to make it.
She wanted to be a veterinarian. If you look at her picture, she had a bright smile. Just a young kid, full of life and full of dreams.
Investigators processed the crime scene but found few clues.
There was physical evidence by the form of a hair that was located on Amber Belken.
She was kind of a blondish brown hair. I found black short hairs on the back of her pants and on the back of her shirt.
The medical examiner determined Amber had been suffocated to death with a plastic bag, and the hair discovered on her clothing was sent for testing.
I sent it to the Bexar County Crime Lab. They were unable to get a profile from it.
Detectives turned to Amber's inner circle for any viable leads and learned she had been having some trouble at work.
Amber had talked about an employee that she was having a hard time with, that she was afraid she was going to have to fire. That employee was Brandon Bill, one of the people that found her body.
Amber had confided to her mother she might have to take action soon.
He was not working up to her expectations. She said he was jealous of Amber's position.
Detectives were bothered that Brandon had only looked for Amber when another coworker had arrived at the store, especially after he saw her car.
He said that he had walked past her car, that her car was in the parking lot. Knowing that the door was locked, her car was there, you go inside, it's obvious you can't miss the games that are on the floor. That's out of place right there. He doesn't go and look for her. That's just suspicious. Most people would see something like that and go, "Oh, something's wrong," and take a look around the store. And he never did.
Investigators questioned Brandon at police headquarters, and it only heightened their suspicion.
I sent him back to the homicide office, and another detective took his statement. And she calls me while I'm still at the crime scene. She says, "Something's up with this guy. I got a feeling about this guy. Something's not right." So, he kind of jumped on the radar pretty quick.
Police may have been alarmed by his actions, but Brandon's behavior after the murder seemed subdued.
He was cooperative. I interviewed him again several times. He signed consent to search his vehicles and his apartment. He gave swabs so we can get DNA. Everything I asked of him, he did.
It was ultimately Brandon's timeline that made it impossible for him to commit the murder.
He was with his girlfriend's parents, helping them move. I got them in for statements. They confirmed that he was with them.
Cell phone records also showed he was nowhere near the store at the time police believe Amber was murdered, sometime between 9 a.m. when she arrived and turned off the alarm, and before 10 a.m. when she stopped returning calls.
Anytime you drive by a cell phone, whether you're talking on it or not, if your cell phone is on, it's going to hit and register on that cell phone tower. I was able to do a tower dump on his cell phone to a tower that is located right near the EB Games, and I checked his phone number against that. For that time period, we believed that she was murdered, and his number wasn't there. We went through thousands of numbers. His number did not pop up.
Investigators were back to square one.
I had no forensic evidence. I had no video evidence. I had zero physical evidence for a long time.
A sizable $100,000 reward was offered for any tips leading to an arrest.
He called me and said that he knew who killed Amber. He said that he used to work at EB Games and got fired.
Investigators had run out of leads in Amber Belken's murder investigation when an anonymous tip blew the case wide open.
He called me and said that he knew who killed Amber.
The caller identified himself as Joe, and he gave police the alleged suspect's name.
He told me it was Geovany Rivera. I asked him, how do you know Geovany did it? And he says, well, he told me he did it.
Joe told police that he and 23-year-old Geovany Rivera had previously worked at EB Games, but they both quit their jobs about a year before Amber's murder. He also told Detective Roberts that Geovany was looking for some extra cash when he called him.
Geovany says, I need to get some money. We should rob a EB Game store. And Joe said he thought he was just talking, he didn't think anything of it until later, a few days later.
Amber's murder was all over the news.
Geovany calls him again, they're talking. Geovany says, yeah, I did it. He says, I feel dead inside.
So why did it take him so long to come forward with that tip?
He got the feeling bad. He saw an interview on the news with Amber's parents, and apparently Joe saw that and started feeling guilty.
Detective Roberts learned his full name was Joe Flores, and he was able to confirm that Flores and Geovany Rivera had both worked for EB Games, but at a different location than the one Flores said Rivera had robbed. Did you believe Joe's story?
I didn't disbelieve it. They both worked for EB Games. When I took a statement from Joe, are you sure you're not involved? No, I'm not involved. I was not there, but Geovany gave me a PlayStation that he took from the robbery.
San Antonio police felt they had enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant and an arrest warrant for Geovany Rivera. When San Antonio police knocked on Rivera's door, he answered.
Your name's come up. I would like to talk to you about this case I'm working. He says, okay, let me go tell my wife. We drive all the way back down to the homicide office. He never once asked what case, never asked any questions.
At police headquarters, Rivera acknowledged knowing Amber Belken.
He admitted to being in the store several times. He says, matter of fact, I was in there the other day, so my fingerprints are going to be all over the place, even the back door. That's an odd thing to say. I asked him for a DNA sample. He refused and says, I want to go home now.
Detective Roberts had no choice but to take him back home. I'm sure that didn't feel good. Were you afraid he might skip town?
Well, yeah, that's why I got a hold of the SWAT team to do some surveillance on him, see what he's going to do. A couple hours later, they called me up and say, hey, he's loading up. We stopped him. Says he's on the way to Laredo. So, there goes my murder suspect.
Amber's case had hit another roadblock.
Couldn't find anything to put him at the store. Months go by, and I get a phone call from a detective in Laredo. He says, hey, you working this murder case? Yeah. He says, well, I got a witness for you.
Geovany Rivera had left a trail of terror in his wake.
Geovany Rivera's wife is living down here, and she reported that Geovany raped her and beat her with a gun. Geovany flees to Mexico. He says, she has information on your murder.
Rivera's wife cooperated with police. She recounted the horror of learning about Amber's murder.
The night that I dropped him back off at his apartment when I did the search warrant, she goes, what was this all about? He goes, we need to pack up and leave. We're going to your mother's house in Laredo. She goes, why? He says, well, the girl at the store that was killed? She goes, yeah. He goes, well, I killed her.
It was the break detectives had been waiting for.
That's all I needed. I had enough probable cause to get an arrest warrant for him.
And when the San Antonio Police Department needed help with the fugitive, they knew who to call.
I was in contact with Bobby Hogan from the U.S. Marshal's Office. This guy does miracles.
I was asked to assist with locating and apprehending Geovany Rivera.
Deputy Bobby Hoagland knew Rivera had a significant and violent criminal history.
We know that he sexually assaulted and threatened to kill his wife. He had taken her to an industrial area where he sexually assaulted her, put the gun to her head, and threatened to kill her.
Deputy Hoagland then blasted his photo on media outlets.
I submitted Geovany Rivera as a candidate to be placed on the 15 most wanted list. So that is paramount when you're looking for somebody who's violent, who's armed and dangerous, and who merits the criminality to be on our list.
It took U.S. Marshals 6 weeks to track him down.
I started interviewing family members. They were able to provide me some information as to his possible location in Mexico, in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico.
Law enforcement officials in Mexico were contacted to assist with Rivera's arrest.
Mexican law enforcement officials conducted a surveillance on one of the locations. They made entry into the residence, and I believe he was in an upstairs area.
But he was too late and apprehended without incident.
When he was located, he tried to run, and they located the handgun. They located the games that he had stolen after he had murdered Amber Belken.
Rivera was then taken back to the United States and into custody.
They in turn transported him to a facility in Laredo, and I drove down there that night. Read Geovany his rights. He had the right to remain silent. I couldn't keep him from talking. He says, "I thought you were going to arrest me that night you picked me up in my apartment." And I said, "Well, it was." And he gave a full confession.
And then that's when she panicked and she wanted to scream, and I just covered her mouth and just saying, "Please don't scream." I just grabbed my bag and I just told her to just be quiet, just be quiet. When she stopped moving, I just heard her gurgling, and I untied her. I said, "Are you okay?" And she wasn't breathing, and I heard her gasp, but she didn't respond anymore. And that's when I left. I had already had the money, and I put the stuff that I wanted to pick up so I could sell, and I left out the back door.
Bringing Rivera to justice would hopefully ease the pain.
He killed her, to silence her. And yet her voice was loud in the silence. It's horrific. I guess the best thing to say is, rest in peace, Amber.
Geovany Rivera was charged with murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Investigators give Joe Flores and Geovany Rivera's former wife, Veronica, credit for helping them solve the case. They also noted that Flores refused to accept the $100,000 reward money for providing information that led to Geovany Rivera's arrest. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. To help maximize safety in the workplace, always have more than one person working during a shift. There is safety in numbers. Or hire a security guard. Install panic alarms and security cameras and post signs that alert the public. Keep minimal cash in the registers and safe, and post signs that indicate there is limited cash in the store. Oftentimes, these signs are deterrent enough for would-be robbers. And finally, do not resist or struggle with a robber. Your life is way more important than any merchandise or the contents of any safe. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.